Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wellness Entrepreneur Podcast with me, your host, Kirsty Kianifard. Now, today's guest will be familiar to my collective members. It is the lovely Sade Jones. And Sade Jones is a time management coach. She helps ambitious entrepreneurs who want to spend more time developing their business, but who are currently feeling overwhelmed all over the place, to feel more organized, gain more profit, and achieve their goals. So welcome to the podcast, Sade. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Kirsty, for the beautiful introduction. I'm doing great. Excited to be on the podcast.
I'm so excited to have you here because, since you ran the masterclass Inside the Collective, which if you remember and you haven't listened to yet, I'd really suggest you go and dive in. It's made me function in so much more of a productive way. It's got me thinking about lots of things, and definitely our members as well. I know it's been a big focus point for conversation, because without organization and productivity, growing a business can just feel like, and you said it in your bio in the intro I just read, the most overwhelming thing in the world, right? I feel like most entrepreneurs go from feeling, I've got this, I'm flying high, I'm so proud of myself, I've got it all going. And then often within 24 hours, they can feel like they are drowning, and it's like they can't see the light. So we're going to be sharing some of your amazing tips today, but I would also just love to know more about you and what got you into the world of organization and productivity.
Originally from New York City, and I currently live down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I started my first business at 10 years old, which is always a funny story to tell, because at the time, I didn't know that's what I was running, but I've always been interested in just making my own money. And I saw a demand for what I was selling when I was 10 was snacks, because I was in a school that was kind of far away from where a lot of the things where you could buy stores and stuff like that, where you could buy snacks, essentially was far away. So I saw a demand for kids wanting those things. And I had a bunch of snacks in my house. So in my head, I was just like, I should bring them to school and I should sell them like they do at the store. Like literally, that's how my 10-year-old brain worked, which is absurd, but when you talk about it. So I've always kind of had that at heart. And when I went into college, I originally was going to go for journalism, because I always liked to write as well. But I had an advisor in high school that told me, maybe you should go for business. And she said that, and she tied it all together. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go for business. So I ended up getting my business degree, falling in love with marketing and advertising, which I didn't know was something you could do as a career until college. And I ended up getting what I thought was my dream job after I graduated. I worked for these huge Fortune 500 brands. I was working on ads all day, every day, but there was still this part of me that didn't feel fulfilled. And even though I thought it was my dream job, I went through kind of like identity crisis, which I've met many people do in their early 20s, where you're like, I thought this is what I wanted, this is what I worked for, but I feel like I'm drowning as an adult. This is not my purpose. So I started The Fire Inside, which originally is the name of my company now, but originally was a blog. And it was just a personal development blog where I talked about different aspects of my lifestyle that I was improving on in order to inspire other people to do the same. And the blog got some traction, and it actually ended up getting bigger than I thought it would be, which really scared me. So when I first started it, I wrote a couple posts, and then I stopped doing it for a year because of the traction it got. I got so nervous about like people learning about the real me and judgment and things online. It was that time. It was around like 2017 when things were starting to pick up online. So I got really nervous about it. So I completely stopped. So. Which is a funny story. And I like sharing that because I think some people think once you start and you get traction, you just keep going, but it's ups and downs in entrepreneurship. So I got the traction. It was still working my job. And then in 2018, I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this back up. I need to stop letting fear, stop me from moving forward. So that's when I picked it back up. I started getting brand partnerships. I launched an e-commerce store. Things were really picking up for me, but it still wasn't replacing my income to the point where I felt like I quit my job. So I ended up getting a new job, making more money, using that to just essentially save so that I could leave. Not that my employers knew that. Luckily, I don't work there anymore. But I did enjoy the job, and I learned a lot there that I used for my business. And then I ended up in 2019, a year later, hosting networking events. And that's when I discovered, okay, I really like giving advice in real time. I like coaching people and I need to do something with this. So I ended up hiring a business coach right before the pandemic hit. And right before the pandemic hit, it was crazy. That same week, my job offered me this huge promotion I've been waiting for. And I was in between, should I take this promotion and I was going to be relocated to a new city. What should I do that? Or should I go all in with my entrepreneur pursuits? And it took me like about a week to decide. And I'm so glad that I decided on the business coach and not the promotion, because the week later, the pandemic hit, the office shut down, the promotion was held for over a year, probably still held now because I ended up quitting. But so crazy. So all of that led me to becoming a time management coach, all due to mostly my business coach who helped me realize what my strengths were. Like, and when I went into it, I thought I would just, I want to do life coaching. I'm not sure where I want to do exactly. And she helped me realize that my experience as an account and project manager could be used to help people in their own personal lives, especially entrepreneurs. So that's how I ended up in this specific niche, and I really enjoy it.
I love that story because it just highlights the enormous amount of twists and turns, right? That can get us to where we are. And I'd love to sort of backpedal a bit on a few of the things that you said, because I think they're really significant. The first one is around this fear of success, and for you to have that quite early on. I'd love you to just talk more on like what you were afraid of, and do you still have that? Like, do you still worry that this business may get to a point where you feel that same level of vulnerability, or have you worked on that? And have you had any sort of light bulbs from it?
I definitely feel I've worked on my vulnerability. Back then, I think I jumped in too fast. So back then I was just starting to be more comfortable with sharing things online and not feeling like I would be judged for it. But I also was like digging deep in my own personal life, reading a lot of like Brené Brown, watching videos on vulnerability. I was like going really deep in. And I think because I was so into learning about it and how to share with others and then doing it at the same time was a little too much for me. And I think I got overwhelmed very quickly. But now I'm at a point where I'm removed from it enough where I know that through sharing my stories, what's going to help me connect with people deeply. And I'm way more comfortable sharing a lot more personal things than I have been. And also, I just think as you grow up, you just get more comfortable with who you are. So yeah, I would say now I'm way more comfortable being vulnerable, sharing my failures. Before, oh my goodness, I had so much imposter syndrome. I was such a perfectionist. I was so scared to tell people or show people that I've failed before. But now I realize showing people that I've failed is way more relatable than trying to become or try to come across as like a perfect person or the like I get everything right the first time, because no one does.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have these conversations because we hear so much around the narrative around success and the limiting beliefs that block us, and the not knowing the strategies that block us, and not managing a time well that blocks us. But I think there's a huge percentage of people in business that are just afraid of what the success may require of them and how their life may change if they get all the things that they want. So I just think it's really valuable to have that conversation and to hear that you've been there. And then this leads me to what I was going to ask you as well, is around how much of what's happened for you do you feel is sort of divine timing? Like, do you believe in this idea of a bigger plan? Do you know what I mean? Almost like, were you supposed to feel that resistance to the success there because actually that wasn't where you were meant to be going?
That's a great question. I definitely do believe in divine timing. But I think in the moment, it doesn't feel like divine timing. I think it only feels like it when I'm telling the story to you right now. Like thinking back, I'm like, all right, everything led me to where I'm at right now. And I think what I'm doing right now is probably going to lead me to even greater things. But it's hard to see in the moment. But yes, I do, to answer the question, yes, I do believe in divine timing. And I think everything that we go through is preparing us for whatever our next step is.
Yeah, amazing. So let's just dig in a little bit more to the time management and the productivity. How how synonymous do you feel those two things are with making money? Like you referenced earlier around around you being in charge of big projects. And obviously, many people listening to this, wellness entrepreneurs, they're looking to grow their business, which means increasing profits, which means making more money. Do you think that if you don't manage your time well, you don't have that organization, do you think it's possible to be able to earn your full potential? Or do you think those two things go hand in hand?
I think they absolutely go hand in hand. Can you make more money and can you scale your business without perfecting I wouldn't say perfecting, improving your time management? Yes, I do think you can eventually. But I think when you learn how to manage your time well and get organized, those things will happen to you much quicker and they'll be way less stressful. I think people who scale very quickly, most of the time there may be people online, talking about, I've hit $1 million in a year, which some people can do, but I think you're not going to get there that quickly without really great time management skills, without reducing your overwhelming your stress, without a team. I think it's very hard to do that as a solopreneur. You have to have organization in your business to get to where you want to be quicker. If you want to take, the longer route and feel overwhelmed on a daily basis and be working like 12 hours a day, then that's an option, but that's not good for your health.
Because you must have such a unique window into, I imagine people, call you in when they feel, I guess everyone's version of not managing their time is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I imagine sometimes you come in and someone's like, I'm terrible with my time. And you think, actually, you're pretty good. Like, yeah, there's things we can tweak. But then also you must see people that you're like, oh my goodness, how are you doing this? Yes. So you must see in real time how those time management skills equate to how well someone's business is performing.
Absolutely, I do. There are a lot of entrepreneurs are really hard on themselves. I think they're the people who are super ambitious and they believe in themselves, but they're also their worst critics. And when they come to me, like you said, a majority of the people I work with come to me thinking they're horrible with their time, but they forget how much they've accomplished and how much they actually have used their time well in the past. They just may be going through a life change like that is deterring them from going back to the great habits that they had. And they really just need help building habits. I mean, what I'm teaching people is just how to create healthy habits and be consistent with them. It's called time management because I help them manage their time, but it's really just managing your behaviors and your habits. But then I also have had people, like you said, who come and they're just all over the place and they don't ever write anything down and everything's just in their head and they have no direction. Yes, those people, there's a different problem and we have to get a little more nitty gritty with how we could create a program for them, but both people can be helped.
Yeah. So I find time to be just such a fascinating thing. Mm-hmm. I have 3 children. One of them has additional needs. I run 2 businesses and I probably have, when I think about, I started in business when I was 23. And I think now I probably have the least time I've ever had. Right. But I am definitely like, I'm the best place I've ever been as an entrepreneur in terms of income, in terms of impact. And what I found interesting when I had my first child was that actually the less time I have, the more productive I am. Yeah, it's like, absolutely. I just don't have time for the fluff. I sit with my list and I'm like, what absolutely has to get done? So do you feel that too? Like, is that true to your experience? But also, how then do you balance that with people? And I know I often think this, I'm like, I could just do with a whole day where I've got nothing planned. It's usually the least productive day ever because I just feel all over the place and I take ages doing everything. But you must hear that all the time. People saying to you like, well, yeah, it's fine for you, but I just don't have time. Yes, so it's that time paradox.
I love what you just shared because it's so true. Have you heard of the Parkinsons Law?
I did after your masterclass, yes.
Oh yeah. So essentially the Parkinson's Law is just that as much space that you give something is how much space it takes up. So in regarding time management, if you give yourself, like you said, a whole day, 10 hours to complete a project, you're going to take the 10 hours to complete that project. But if you know I have 2 hours between this kid waking up and this one having to go to school, I need to bang this out in 2 hours no matter what happens because it has to get done. You're giving yourself that smaller window. You're way more likely to be more productive and to actually get things done and not be so stressed about is it perfect or not, but rather just get it done and get it out. So that's absolutely true. When you have less time, you get more done. And that's why I really enjoy working with side hustlers, because they're always the ones who come to me like, I have absolutely no time. The entrepreneurs come and they're like, all right, I have all day. Just help me organize it, like the full-time entrepreneurs. But the part-time ones, they come and they're like, well, I only have like 3 hours at night. How am I going to make things happen? And I love working with them because they always see these huge results and they're amazed at what they can actually get done in like 2 or 3 hours at night or 2 or 3 hours in the morning. So yeah, absolutely. You can get things done in less time. And a lot of times I love giving clients less time to do things or kind of just challenging them a bit, because a lot of us underestimate how long things can take us, but also a lot of us procrastinate a lot too. So those things kind of tie in and can affect how you manage your time.
So how do you deal then with that biggest objection that I think most entrepreneurs hear in all fields, but you must hear it more, with that, like, well, I just don't have time. What do you say to that?
I have them pull out their schedule because they absolutely do have time. Everyone has time. Honestly, this is another reason why I talk so much about limiting beliefs and mindset, because a lot of people come to me with just these identities that they've taken on, these beliefs that they believe are their identity traits, not something that is just outside of them. And I try to help them see the difference between the two. So for instance, someone will come to me and say, I've heard this so many times. I'm bad with time. I've always been bad with time. My family was bad with time. We're just bad with time. Like, if you identify as someone who's horrible with time, someone who can't manage their time, you're never gonna, no matter how many tactics I give you, you're not gonna believe you're great with time. So you're always gonna think nothing's gonna work for you. And you'd be surprised how many people I have to like spill that out to. They just don't even see that. They're identifying as someone who, they're identifying as a procrastinator. They're identifying as someone who's a perfectionist. They're identifying as someone who doesn't know how to manage their time, who's bad with time. How can you be bad with time? You're just bad with the management of how you're spending it right now. So it's almost like I have to show them that who they are is different than the beliefs that they have, and open their mind to new beliefs. Because a lot of that is just limiting beliefs that can be reversed. Like, you're only bad with time because maybe you feel you're bad with time because you weren't taught how to manage it the right way. And once you've learned how to manage it the right way, you're going to become great with time. You can develop a better relationship with time. A lot of people just feel very stressed by time and just the thought of it in general, because it is our most valuable asset. So I understand that. But we all have the same amount of hours and we all can maximize it as much as we believe we can.
Yeah. And I suppose it's like anything. It's like once you're back in the driver's seat, like once you feel you're in control of your own time. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing is a lot of those beliefs disempower you, don't they? They're almost like, whatever I do, I will never be, and then sort of finish the sentence. Exactly. But I always say to my clients, business is personal growth on steroids. And this is another example of it. If you are sitting here thinking, I just wish I was more like so-and-so who manages their time so well, it's almost like the strategies probably won't work until you've identified your identity around time, your limiting beliefs around time, what's been modeled to you around time, the things that we say, right? I never have enough time. Or I'm always running out of time. I'm always late. Those things that they just come without us even needing to think. They're deep in that subconscious mind.
Exactly. And I think people don't realize that a lot of times you just need to create better boundaries. A lot of time management comes down to creating better boundaries for yourself. Like you just said, I'm always late. That's someone that, like, people say that to me all the time. They always say that they're always late. And I'm just like, well, that's because you sacrifice something else instead of getting ready earlier or preparing for whatever you need to do or accommodating for your commuting time or traffic. We know ahead of time how long things are usually going to take us, but we still will not do the sacrifices that we need. And we think we're like superhumans, or we'll rather just drive really fast instead of, or put ourselves in these stressful, rushing environments. So yeah, it all comes down to our beliefs and our habits.
I love it. I love it. And I'm so in tune with my clients that I can imagine them listening to this episode. And one of the things they're going to be thinking, because wellness entrepreneurs, tend to, you know, we love the spaciousness. We love to sort of be in the moment. We love to feel that we are feeling called and moved to do certain things. So I know a big hesitation with my clients is around, it feels too structured. Like, I don't want to feel pinned in. I don't want to wake up every morning and feel like, oh, you know, there's no space for creativity. Everything is blocked out. They might feel that feels more hustly, or it might feel more like that sort of masculine energy. So what would you say to that? How do you get that balance between having the structure and the boundaries to help you get where you want to go, but also the spaciousness to allow some creativity to run the show as well?
So I think what most entrepreneurs forget is that they're designing their day. They're designing their life. They chose this profession because they want to design their time freedom on their own terms. So if you want to create more space for creativity and you want to feel less structured, then you plan it in, which I know sounds like, isn't that kind of structured? But I think it's a little different. I also think a lot of people think about time management organization as structured, when in actuality, to me, there's nothing wrong with being structured. I don't think structure and creativity are so different from each other. If you are more structured, you actually end up having more time to be creative. So I'll give an example. Let's say you have certain projects or benchmarks you need to hit on a weekly basis. If you know that on Monday and Wednesdays is when you're going to get those things done, you can give yourself Tuesday and Thursday to be completely free. Let's say on those days, you literally wake up and you decide you can do whatever you want that day. You can paint, you can go for a walk, you can do nothing. Whatever you decide you want to do on those days, you'll be able to actually be more creative and be more free, because you'll know that your priorities are set for Monday and Wednesday, that of those things that are more structured that need to get done. For me, I actually do that every week. I have a pretty thought out schedule from Monday to Thursday, and that's when I take a lot of more calls. But my Fridays are always free. It's always, I wake up and do what I want. And those are often the days, like you said, where I don't do much, but I do the things that just feel right. And you need that day, because I do think that every day can't be super structured. But for some people, you know, that may be their weekends, and they may be able to actually enjoy their weekends because they've done the work that they know they need to get done. And that overwhelm and that stress it's not there, because they feel content with where they're at, and they feel content with how they're going about achieving their goals.
I love that. And I think you've hit a really important point there, which is sometimes we believe that the spaciousness or the empty day for creativity or for just doing whatever we want, it sounds great. But if you haven't ticked off the things that are pressing, that you know you want to get done, that you know will move your business forward, you actually end up having so much mental load and emotional turmoil on those days off that you're not really off. Do you know what I mean? And you end up sort of catching moments or not feeling guilty around, I don't know, going for a walk and not doing any work. And I'm with you. Like I work 10 till 3 every day as my sort of ring fenced hours. And then Friday I have off. And for a lot of my clients, they think I could never get my work done in that time. But I set that intention first, and then I made everything else fit around it. So do you think that's important as well? Getting clear on, because I think a lot of this stuff happens by accident. People just go, yeah, I'll do that booking then. Yeah, I'll take that call then. Yeah, I guess I could work that evening. Do you think it's important to sort of reverse engineer it and think, what does my entrepreneurial life want to look like? For me, it was like, I want to be around in the after school time, and I want to have Fridays off to myself. How am I going to make this work? As opposed to looking at my calendar and thinking, where can I grab a few hours to myself?
Absolutely. So another thing people come to me and they're always like, well, I need to have my complete calendar open because I want clients to come, especially new entrepreneurs. I want clients to be able to book whatever time is most convenient for them. I need to work around my clients' hours. And I always say, no, your clients need to work around your hours. You need to set the times that work best for your schedule, that feel aligned for you, because that way you're showing up with the energy, like positive energy that you want to be there. You're actually prepared for this meeting versus like I used to take calls on Saturday afternoons. I don't know why I used to do that. I literally was like, well, if people can't, meet with me during the day, on the weekdays, it makes sense to them, they probably have time on Saturdays. I dreaded Saturday afternoon calls. Every time I would go onto them, I was just like, why did I do this call this day? I mean, if you need to make up a call, you get it once in a while. It doesn't make, do what you have to do. But when my schedule used to open on Saturday, it made me so upset that I was working on Saturday.
Yes.
So why do that? Just completely block it off. So yes, I do think you have to, I always say, create your office hours. Like, what are the hours where you're going to take calls? What are the hours where you need quiet work? For me, in the morning, I much rather do more quiet activities versus like taking a call at 7 or 8 a.m. Some people love taking calls at that time, but I'm also someone who I'll take calls at night a couple nights a week because I don't mind that. I actually rather have a free afternoon. So you really have, like I said, design your life the way you want it to be, and people will adjust. Like, sometimes I think if you have less call slots open, you'll fill them up easier, and people will feel the demand to actually book them because there's less options.
I am so glad you brought this up, because this is like the new entrepreneur's biggest hang up. It's this idea, well, it sounds great. Yeah, okay, I'll just take calls on a Monday. But there's that scarcity energy. And I think this just sort of confirms what you were saying earlier around, like, this is about looking at your mindset first, because you could give someone that suggestion with all the evidence in the world that works. But if they're in that scarcity mindset, if they're thinking like, no, I have to be available all of the time in order to get busy, there's going to be a huge amount of resistance to that. And it's funny we speak about it today, because yesterday I had a call with a private client who did exactly that. She's like ring-fenced her hours, has not worked on a Saturday for years. And she said to me, like, this person really needed my help. The only day they could do was a Saturday. So I did it. 2 weeks in, and she's already got that sense of like the dread for the Saturday. And we have to remember that as entrepreneurs, as the person steering the ship, we have to maintain the excitement and the joy in our business. And putting those little odd appointments in times that just don't suit us causes resentment, doesn't it? And it causes that conflict between us and our business. So it's so important.
And there's no one above you, right? Like, you're your motivator. You motivate your team. You dictate the energy that you bring. So yes, absolutely, it's so important to make sure that you're being the leader that you want to be and showing up, in your authentic, most powerful self.
I think also you start the way you mean to go on, because it's a lot harder to retrain clients to know, like, oh, I don't work weekends, or I don't work evenings, if they've been doing it for years. And there's that expectation that you set, and then to have to go, oh no, not anymore, is a lot harder than just setting it from the offset.
Exactly. Definitely do it from the beginning. I think also a lot of people who've come from, me included, who come from corporate and then go into entrepreneurship, you also feel this sense to do the habits that you were doing at your job. Oh my goodness, for my first couple of months in entrepreneurship, I would log on at like 9 o'clock, because that was when I logged on for work. And then I would start with emails. And then I realized, why the heck do I start my day with emails? No one wants to start their day responding to other people. Well, at least I don't. For me, I was like, I'd rather start my day on a project that I'm really interested in. When my brain power is highest at this time, why am I giving it to emails? But I realized I was doing that in my corporate job. That was the first thing I would do, check emails so that I could update whoever I need to update. And I realized that's just not feasible for me in business. So if there are other, get really aware of your patterns and your behaviors, and think about where they're coming from and how you can take the good ones and then let go of the ones that you no longer want anymore. That was a big game changer for me. I realized, okay, I don't need to work 9 to 5. I can work 9 to 12, take a break in the middle of the day, come back, work 2 to 6, whatever time I want. No one's telling me what times I need to work.
Yes, absolutely. And I suppose also what I'm thinking is, it takes actually a lot of self-awareness, doesn't it? You've got to be really observing your patterns, things you're doing automatically, things that, like, maybe when you have a dip in energy in the day, noticing what you were doing before, knowing your rhythms, your patterns, as you say. Some of us work really well first thing, some of us like working in the evenings. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. And what you're saying is fascinating. And I'm sure so many people are like, yes, I'm going to finally take charge of my time. So let's imagine we've got someone who is thinking that, but sort of at the beginning, not quite sure where to start. What would be your sort of like, I don't know, 3 top tips or something of someone that really wants to start mastering their time? Where do they start? What sort of things should they do to get organized?
So they have to start with utilizing some form of a calendar. Like, I think people underestimate how important it is to write things down, but also to select a time frame to do them. It doesn't have to be super stringent. You know, when you're starting out, I think trying to time block every 30 minutes of the day can be really challenging. But just if you're starting out, here's where we start. First, you would write out a list, like create a list for what you want to accomplish for the week. I think a week's time frame is very feasible for most people, because if I say write out things you want to do for a day, it's going to be way too long. And I already know, because people give themselves way too many things to get done a day. So I always say write out what you would want for an entire week. After you've written that out, then go in and circle what's the most important and urgent things that need to happen that week. So important meaning that it's tied to your values, or it's going to move your business forward. And then urgent meaning it has a tight deadline, it needs to happen in a certain time frame. If it doesn't, there are consequences that will happen. So go ahead, circle those top things, and then select 3 for each day that you decide you're going to work. So if that's Monday through Friday, that's 3 top things you want to get done for the entire week, and then select a time frame when you want to do them. And that's it. Put it on your calendar, and those are just the 3 things you want to get. And if you have space outside of those 3 things, which you should, let that time be a time to just be free. I think there's nothing wrong with having, time for yourself, for self-care, for time for family, time to cook dinner, whatever it is that you watch TV, whatever you enjoy, you can intertwine that into your schedule, and you'll actually be more happy and you'll feel more fulfilled when you do, because no one should just be a robot working all day, every day. So I would say, yeah, start there, writing that list, selecting the priorities that are most important, and then getting it onto a calendar and just executing on it. The hard part for most people is that execution. So that's when the repetition comes into play. That's when you have to work on your self-discipline. That's when you may want to consider getting outside help, like someone like me, like a coach, to help you with that execution and that accountability.
Because I imagine it's a bit like training a muscle, is it? So it's like, you've got to, as you say, you likely have come from a different way of working, and you've got to start to figure this out, and you might have picked up some bad habits. So it's natural for it to take time, and for you to need to that bit of accountability, and for you to probably like fall off the wagon a few times and have to get back on it, right?
Absolutely. Everyone comes to me and they think in the first 2 weeks after we've like set up a schedule, they're just going to be amazing. And I'm like, no, there's a reason why this coaching program is months long. Like, it takes about 90 days for someone to really get in tune with their schedule and to make it second nature, like a habit that's ingrained. So yes, it does take time. Everyone always thinks they're just going to be great from the start. And what I've always noticed is not only does it take time to get to that great point, that you're going to have a lull again. Like, you may be consistent for a couple of weeks, something happens, you go down, and then you come back up. And that's natural. I always tell my clients, it's better for you to try to get 9 out of 10 than 10 out of 10. Like, no one's always going to be a 10 out of 10, but a 9 out of 10 on a regular basis is a great place to be. You just have to work your way up to it, and don't be afraid to change your schedule as you need. Like, the same morning routine may not work in 5 months, but if you know the habits on how to change it and how to make it fit for yourself, you'll always know how to do that. So that's why I'm really, really, really adamant about teaching people the reasoning behind what I teach, and teaching the methods, not just telling you what to do or just giving you a schedule, but teaching you the skills so you can do it for yourself again and again and again.
I love that. I really resonate with it. I've had an operation a few weeks ago, and so I've had a few weeks off, and I've got a really good schedule, but I'm finding it really hard to like click back into it because I've had those weeks off. So I really resonate with that idea of, you will keep sort of the ebb and the flow of the schedule, and having to come back to it and think, okay, but now does this still suit? Is it still for me? And potentially having to adjust things. So if we've mapped out our week and then we've plotted it into our calendar, what's the third tip you can give us?
So you have it in your calendar. The third tip I would say is to make sure that you're priming your environment for success. So we can have an amazing schedule where we know when we're going to get done what we say we're going to get done. But then when we sit down to work, maybe there's clutter everywhere. Maybe our phone is going off. Maybe our email tab is open, even though we're not checking emails. Like there's probably different factors, or maybe, kids are running around, or there's a lot of noise in your environment. I think it's really important to make sure that you're setting your environment up for success, that you clean desks, you have one tab open that you need, that maybe you're playing some background music or a podcast that gets you inspired, that you have your tea or your snack, whatever it is that's going to make you feel excited about the work that you're doing. Make sure you're setting your environment up for that. Make sure that you're limiting your distractions, because distractions get us all. We all are tempted to check our phones every second. I know I am. So that's why a lot of times my phone is on silent or it's away from me. But also make sure that you're taking breaks. I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work for 2 hours. That's really long to go straight through. Most people should take a break at least every half hour, every hour and a half. You want to make sure that you're carving in some time for breaks. Otherwise, your mind is just kind of going to drift off. So I would say limit those distractions. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know these devices are designed for us to keep picking them up, right? So yes. I think we have to be, I remember you saying in the masterclass that you were, sometimes you'll put it in a drawer or just somewhere totally away. And it sounds mad that we have to do that, but it's another habit, isn't it? It's another thing that we're not really doing consciously. We're just seeing it light up and sort of moving over there, and we can just get lost for hours in that sort of space. So that's so helpful, really, really helpful. So we're going to map out our week. We are going to block that into a calendar, so it's not just in here. And then we're going to make sure we set our environment up for success so that we have the best chance of, as you say, executing on those actions.
Exactly. You got it.
It sounds brilliant. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I know this is going to be so helpful, and I just know that people are going to be jumping straight into your DMs and asking you more questions about this. So amazing. Tell us a bit more about how people work with you and how people find you, all of that sort of stuff.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Sade. So that's SADE Jones _. And you can also find me on my site, which is thefireinsidesade.com. And I have 2 different coaching offers right now. It's my one-on-one coaching program, which is called Reclaim Your Time. It's a 3-month coaching program. And then I also have my 30-day coaching, which is also on my site. You can learn more about that there. And I have so much blog content around time management, around personal development. I have digital products. I also talk a lot about productivity and time management on my Instagram, and I go live every week on my Instagram as well. So I'm really excited to connect with everyone listening here. And if you have any questions, like Kirsty said, you can go ahead and DM me. I do answer my DMs.
Amazing. I have to say, your Instagram after the masterclass, there was a few things I was like, I'm sure you said that. And I went and had a little nosy and I found exactly what I was looking for. Yeah. So there is a wealth of knowledge on there. Do go over there. So before I let you go, I'll ask all our guests this question. Which is, if you were to go on stage to give the keynote speech of your life, what anthem would you want to walk on stage to?
Oh,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
What anthem would I? That's tough. Ooh, that's a tough one. It would probably be. I don't know. I'm blanking on like a song title. I'm not sure what anthem I would exactly want, but it'd probably be something by Beyonce.
Yeah. It's any of them, right? I mean, there's so much to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can't think of an exact title, but yeah, probably something by her.
Go put on a Beyonce playlist and there'll be something there for sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Sade. Honestly, this has been so helpful. I know it's going to be one that our listeners come back to. So thanks for joining us. And we'll see you soon.